Hello guys, welcome once again to my YouTube channel. I'll talk to you today about what I've titled The Time in Waiting. This kind of sounds strange, but then at the end of the day, it actually gets the importance of what I'm talking about. The time in waiting is basically a time in training. The time in waiting is basically a time in preparation. It's basically a time of building oneself up. It is a time of fortification. This time in waiting comes after you've discovered your strengths and abilities. It comes after you've discovered your expertise and specialty. This time in waiting comes to tell us that you don't just up and throw yourself into a career. You don't just up and throw yourself in an area without having been adequately prepared for it. You would have to first find what you are good at, then have a training session to build yourself adequately to be suited to handle that which you are good at. That is what I call, or the time that is spent in training yourself, in equipping yourself with the requisite skills, is a time that I call the time in waiting. Irrespective of your career, there's the need to actually spend a time in waiting. That is a time that you would become equipped, you become adequately sufficient, you'd become very ready to be able to take on your new role. You'd find that a lot of people think they know what they are good at, they found their expertise, they found where they are talented, but then having entered into the new space, they'll find themselves wanting, they'll find themselves lacking. This is probably because there was no time spent in waiting. This is probably because there was no time spent in orienting themselves in preparation of the new role they are about to take on. You don't just up and enter into any space thinking that you have a good idea of what is there, because you might actually enter and realize that you are at a loss and you have absolutely no knowledge of what goes on there. This is why you need to train yourself. You probably want to enter into agriculture. You don't just up and buy a land and then get seed or whatever you want to cultivate and then plant on the land. You'd have to know that there's raining season and there's dry season. You'd have to know that even with the raining season, there are some types of rain, or sometimes it rains so heavily that instead of helping crops to grow, it destroys crop. You'd have to know that there are fertilizers, there are insecticides, and all of those things that are needed. You don't just go and buy a land and start cultivating your crops simply because you have money. There is actually a time that should be spent to research, to have ample knowledge of how farming is done. That way, at the end of the day, if you eventually enter into that farming, you are going to reap bountifully, you are going to get a bumper harvest. This doesn't only extend to farming, it extends to a number of careers you could think of. It extends to every phase, every sphere, every aspect of our life as individuals. It is very necessary as individuals that we spend time in waiting, because if we spend time in waiting, we'd realize that eventually when we are unleashed, eventually when we are out of the cage and then we are actually in the arena, we'll find everything very easy for us. We'll find that productivity would be very high. It is very good, and we end up being satisfied with ourselves if we do a very good work. You don't get to do a very good work if you don't know what you are about. You don't get to do a very good work if you are not amply armed for that. It is necessary that we arm ourselves. We are armed to the nail. We are very prepared. We are very ready with whatever we are faced with. We can only be ready if we actually go through the necessary steps, if we actually spend time in preparation, if we actually spend time in training ourselves, to build ourselves, to fortify ourselves, so that eventually when we are where we actually need to be, it will be very easy for us and it will be a seamless and very smooth journey. Everyone actually needs to spend a time in waiting. I need to spend a time in waiting if I discover my abilities, so that I'll bolster them and provide or produce a very good work. You also need to do that, because we actually all need to thrive in wherever space we find ourselves. I hope this actually comes as very necessary and important for you, and I hope you actually take this into practice. Thank you very much.